Hi, neighbors. Samuel here. So glad to be back in the swing of things. A couple weeks ago, I was battling something fierce. So it feels great to be back and to have this opportunity to talk to you before the episode starts. I only have one announcement, which is an update on a project Mom and I have been working on for the past couple months. It's a new website for JHR counseling. If you go to jhrcounseling.com, you'll see something that Mom and I have both worked really hard on. There's a bunch of new information on there. There's a blog that Mom has started that you can subscribe to. There is also a bunch of resources that you can check out, one of which being the entire Community Roots back catalog of all our episodes. So you can go to jhrcounseling.com, click on Community Roots, and listen within her website without having to click on anything else or go anywhere else or have anything installed. So I'm really excited about that. I worked pretty hard on it and would love if you checked it out. So again, that's jhrcounseling.com. Thanks so much, Mom. I know she worked as hard as well. So that's pretty much all I have before we start the episode. Special thanks to Betsy for being a part of this week's Off the Beaten Path. I hope you all will enjoy the episode, and I will talk to you soon. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to Community Roots, a place where we gather in community to talk about mental health so we can travel the journey of life together. I'm Samuel Richards.
I'm Julie Richards.
And we are live and in person again in
Yay!
Worthington, Ohio. And this week we are off the beaten path with Betsy Farasey. Welcome, Betsy, to the show.
Thanks, Samuel. Thanks, Julie. I appreciate it. Happy to be here.
So glad you're here.
Oh my gosh.
I'm so excited about this. So I want to tell our listeners that Betsy and I went to grad school together at our stomping grounds of Wright State University.
Woohoo!
And did all kinds of bonding in our classes and good experience.
Yes, definitely a great experience. It's a lot of fun there.
It was good to reconnect after we both are therapists, and I guess it was a year ago that was it a year or two ago?
Oh.
How does time do that, where it's just like, was that a year and a half or 2 years? Anyways, did a training and Betsy came back for it. She's moved out of the area, but I'm sharing her story and I should let her do that. So if you
Yeah, I wanted to quick shout out Mom before you start your story, Betsy, which is she's totally been a good alumni coming back and showing up for teachers' protests and stuff like that. And so, yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was with Beth McElhenney. Yeah.
Yeah, whenever they were on strike, when Wright State was on strike, we went to the courthouse. Something in Columbus. What was the building?
I
State
don't
House?
know. There are so many different government buildings downtown. But anyway, yeah, a judge
we
ruled
showed
on,
up at the court hearing for it.
Yeah. It was packed. It was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so Betsy, how about you tell us a little bit about your kind of mental health journey and how you ended up as a therapist?
Oh, wow, thanks. So I definitely, as we were talking about earlier, didn't come out of the womb as a therapist. I actually went to school and ended up with a political science undergrad, which is very far away from therapy. And then played golf. And I was a golf pro for many years at several different golf clubs in Ohio and then in Kansas. And I did a lot of teaching and really enjoyed that.
Crazy.
I know. Then after that, my husband, I was married, and my husband and I decided to have kids, and the golf business wasn't going to be helpful in raising a family because it's very busy, and everybody's holiday is like your biggest work day of the year. So it doesn't jive real well with that. So um, decided to just be a mom for a while, and I did that, and we moved back to Dayton, and kind of felt the need to do something different, and realized that my favorite part of being a golfer was teaching and working with people, and then seeing that like light bulb moment that people have when it clicks and when they get it, and wanted to find a way to help people with that, and that's how Julie and I met at grad school at Wright State.
That kind of reminds me of counseling a little bit, because there's that aha moment that a client has in session. And I always think of it as, these are the synapses in your brain making new connections, and all those neurotransmitters firing, and all the good stuff that happens whenever people have their kind of insight click for them.
Yes, yes, and I think when that happens, it's such a special moment, right? To be able to witness that with someone, and to be able to see their eyes kind of brighten up, and it's like, oh, now I understand. Now that makes sense.
And maybe you've seen, or our listeners too have seen, like that meme that has what counseling looks like is how it's all tangled up. And then as you start to talk about it, it all
With the
untangles.
yarn, is that the one you're talking about? Oh,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah. That's that idea of making sense together, and how we can feel really conflicted and overwhelmed. And then as we talk things through, things can kind of be like a puzzle piece. Everything fits together and makes more sense. And then you feel more resolved, untangled.
Yes, a great way to say that. Right. That untangled feeling is, I think that's such a great visual.
I wanted to say I don't know, I've never met a professional golfer, and I would say too that there's got to be a book there. Like there's a book waiting to be written there about like, I used to be hitting holes in ones, and now I'm going like now I'm okay with just getting the chips.
Right.
I don't know. You can.
There should be some parallel, maybe.
Yeah, some of the
Maybe
lingo.
like
But I
playing
can just
from the rough or something.
yes,
Yeah.
something like that. You've already
Yeah.
got it. You've got it
How to
down.
line up your fourth putt, something along those
Yeah.
lines. I think that book was already written, but
Maybe like meditation on the golf course or something, that's just like
Can
you
tie
can
the
see
two worlds together.
there's a market there or
I
something.
think you guys might be onto something. This might be our next journey
There we go.
here.
TMR. Yeah, I want to say I get a portion of those proceeds. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So yeah, you also mentioned being a mom, and I was curious how, just because my mom is a therapist, how your therapy kind of intercedes with you being a mom, and how you interact with your kids and stuff like that.
Oh, wow, good question. Well, I can tell you that there are times where my kids will look at me and say, "Stop being a therapist." So,
Yep, I've been given that.
and which is kind of like, oh yeah. But I've learned a lot. I think that this has probably been one of the biggest benefits to this journey, is that I've learned so much about the brain and just emotional regulation to helping clients, and in a way that's really helped me as a parent, to understand the temper tantrums, and to understand the struggles that the kids are going through, and to recognize that the behavior is communicating something to me, and so that I think that's not something that everybody necessarily has had access to, and I feel very grateful for that piece. So I think it's made me a better mom in a lot of ways.
Do you get those same aha moments with your kids where they're like, aha, or is that kind of reserved for your?
It's more like, no.
A little bit of attitude with it.
Right. More like, whatever. No. The aha moments with my kids come when we're both really feeling regulated, and when we connect. And, sometimes it lasts a second, and sometimes it lasts, longer than that. And those are those aha moments, I think, with my kids where you really, where I get you and you get me, and, we're right there with each other.
We were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, but essentially, I was curious, how, as a therapist and a mom, did you deal with kind of summer vacation and kind of so much time spent together? And then maybe, follow up question is, how are you dealing with this sort of school situation with kids all the time at home?
So for the summer vacation, we had a lot of fun. Yeah, we had a lot of fun. I think being a therapist, Julie, as you know, like a lot of times your sessions occur in the afternoon and in the evening. And and so you might not get home every day until 6 or 7 o'clock. And um and so you don't necessarily get a ton of those hours that you would normally, like to have with your kids. And so being home and working from home, although it's very different than being in the office with someone, I, I I think in a lot of ways it's been a blessing because I've spent every day with my kids and our dogs and our, and everything that happens around here and all of that. It's been a lot of fun. We've had a really good time. So I think there's also been times where it's been, a little bit difficult. People get on each other's nerves and you've kind of had enough. But at the same time, I feel like I have to find the positive in this. And for me, that's it. That's it. Getting to spend a whole bunch of time with my family. So,
A little bit of Viktor Frankl there, finding the meaning,
hmm,
like
absolutely.
what's helping it be a positive thing and something that really helps connect you and bring your family together.
Hmm.
I would say what I'm noticing just in hearing people's stories that for the most part, people are able to find, I'm glad that I could slow down. I'm glad that we could have more family time. I'm glad that we could be home more. Um, what do you share with your clients or find for yourself for encouragement whenever this feels so long and the cumulative effect of stress and the indefinite amount of time that we're doing this for, all of that like uncertainty?
Mm.
What sustains you in the middle of that personally or that you share with others?
Um, I would probably just laughter, just enjoyment of, whether that's trying to be in the moment with, at home, it would be, with the kids or something like that, or with the dogs and the kids and the pool or whatever. And then I would say with my clients, at the same time, it's, letting them know and being honest with them because I do work with mostly with kids. And I don't think I mentioned this before, usually from like age 3 to 43. Let's say that. But being honest, especially the younger kids, just saying, this is going to end at some point. There will be a sense of normalcy. It's not going to be right now, and it's uncomfortable, and just kind of trying to normalize that for them and let them know that yeah, it's kind of weird for us too. It's kind of strange, and I think like we were talking about earlier, just saying to people, you can only do the things that you can do. And I know it sounds so kind of trite, but washing your hands, wearing a mask, social distancing, those are the things that we can do. And the rest of it, we don't get, there's not a lot we can control in there.
And definitely maybe adding to that, those are the physical things, but to the emotional, mental, taking care of being in nature, going on walks, helping your body have nutrients and hydration and just like your overall well being and strength as a person is going to help sustain you through.
Yeah, I definitely, being out in nature is such a huge thing. Don't you think? It's,
There's so much detail that you can find. There's someone that I follow that I really appreciate who takes like meditation walks and films Facebook Live videos and will just kind of focus in on a flower and the detail of it and then scope back out and like walk through and you're seeing nature like as if you're on that virtual walk with her and just the you can kind of get swept away in a place of peace
Hmm.
of just being able to see the different colors in nature and the detail and textures and shapes and it's really like an artistry.
Yeah.
All of nature is an art. There's just so much there that you could kind of relax your nervous system with or find peace with or joy or fun
Sure.
just noticing the things in nature.
Talk about being in the moment, right? That's amazing. And like to your point on that, I think some of the best sessions that I've had working with kids is when we've gone outside and gone for walks or just to talk, that regulating activity of being outside, being, in the sun and then the repetitive and rhythmic walking that you're doing. I think it really kind of helps to regulate the brain really and make it a lot easier and to have some of those difficult conversations.
Yeah, walking and talking, that's one of my favorite things to do for sure. I wanted to add on to the nature sort of thing as well, because I just went on a huge bike ride this past weekend where I was biking for like 6 hours straight. And that's not for everyone, right? But I think just like once I got to the end of it, I was like, how long has it been? Days, weeks? And, my brain had just done that reset of just being so into, and I find it really easy to be in the moment. In nature, sometimes I get distracted by everything, which is, I guess, pretty good. But what I like about exercising is I really feel my body and I really feel kind of grounded in those moments. So just to kind of also give a pitch for getting on your bike, and yeah, we mentioned walking as well, but just that exercise, because then your brain just kind of reverts into something maybe simpler with physical memory or just like, and so it's easier to not have to worry about a lot of stuff and not to kind of have those cyclical thoughts of like we're trapped in this COVID situation.
And I think that movement that you're talking about, and where did you go on your bike ride, I guess?
We biked to Yellow Springs
Oh, okay.
and back.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That is a very long bike ride.
It was awesome though. And it actually wasn't that bad of weather, so it kind of made it. I will say my like legs were burning by the end
I
of it.
bet. I bet.
And we took a day off in between and it was much needed.
And thinking too about nature and just all of our different senses, like our brain is taking in that like this incredible sensory diet to be able to see and hear. And I'm really big on even noticing the texture and the feeling of different leaves, or like I'll just look at it, like kind of taking it all in, like just kind of appreciating all the detail in it. That there's, you can pause and listen. What are the, hearing the breeze blow through the trees, hearing birds. Like it's just, I think it's very grounding,
Mm,
very life giving.
mhm.
This is just a tidbit for anybody who lives in Hilliard, and this might be a little bit off, but I wanted to say, Mom, that Noah and I used to walk around all the time near the Hilliard house. So in that wood trail area, you know what I'm talking about?
Hmm.
There's actually mushrooms that glow in the dark.
Oh my
And
word.
we took it to our professor and we showed it to her. And anyway, it was kind of a stressful time. So it was a good, like, kind of mini break. But anyway, just to say, if you go hiking in those woods, you could totally find some glow in the dark.
Mushrooms.
Just make sure Luna doesn't eat them on your on your dog walks.
The things you can find.
That's cool. Yeah, it's funny. You're reminding me of like being, I don't know, like being younger, probably sixth, seventh grade, something in there. And we grew up in a house that had a creek behind it. So it went out and then down into the creek. And That was probably my favorite place to be with my brothers. We called it crick slopping. Let's go crick slopping. And but we could spend hours down there, and just looking at things and finding things. And I don't think
Dig in the dirt, look for bugs.
Of course. I never found glow in the dark mushrooms, but I'll have to go to Hilliard and find those.
Yeah, seriously, who would have
Oh,
thought?
that's cool.
Yeah, just having that mindset, I think, has helped. Maybe a curious mindset, one that's more childlike, to be able to just wonder about things. Maybe takes the pressure off of COVID, and maybe just like makes your brain kind of, I don't know, become more fluid instead of more kind of stuck into its extremes. I think that could be a definite useful practice for sure. Yeah, Betsy, you said you mostly deal with children. You mostly work with children. I'm curious, in this COVID world with school and stuff, what are some tips that you recommend for parents, both like in school and just in general, with just so much face to face time with these their kin, their offspring.
Kiddos.
So I think that, I guess, first and foremost, like, I believe everybody is doing the best job they can. I think everybody is really, they're trying to do the best that they can do. And whether you're at home with your children, trying to just make sure they're getting to class and having lunch and those kinds of things, or whether you're home and you're working and your kids are going to school and it feels really chaotic. I think all of those things are, valid and difficult at times. From a tip standpoint, I would say taking care of yourself. Like, from a parent standpoint, making sure that you're regulated as much as you can be, because it's a difficult time. And staying, the more regulated that we stay as parents, and the more internally calm and peaceful that we are, that's going to reflect on our kids, and our kids are going to pick up on that. So if I am running around and talking about how difficult this is and how awful or frustrating or whatever, my kids are going to pick up on that, and they're going to begin to spin up too. But if I stay calm and as much as possible, because there will be moments where I'm not, but if I do the best that I can and I stay regulated, then my kids it's going to be easier for them to stay regulated and to be able to sit through class. And it's not easy. I have two kids that are probably, there's probably a little ADHD in there. There's probably a little anxiety in there, but for the most part, neurotypical. Um, and they're struggling, and we're like 3 days in, and in the afternoon, my daughter got her yoga ball, and she's just bouncing away trying to stay focused in class. And so, whatever it takes, if it's a fidget, if it's a yoga ball, if it's a snack, if it's whatever it is to help your child to be successful, be able to make it through school and to take in as much information as they can, that's great. And if it's just helping your child stay regulated, that's great too.
I was curious, I do know a couple single child situations where there's just one child, and even if you have more than one kid, how do you what's your recommendation, or kind of maybe your thoughts on trying to fulfill that social need of your child while still being, like an adult, right? Like their parent. But that's difficult. So I was just curious what you thought about that.
Sure. Well, I think some of the things that I know people have done, are to get together with people and continue to social distance and do the things that we should, that we need to be doing. But also, I encourage parents to play with their kids, be with your children, have fun with your kids, whatever that is. and to be silly. I think playing with your kids and having that joy that you can have, or that wholeness that you can have of just being silly and having fun. Um, Not only does that kind of help you to relax and have a good time, but it also builds the connection with your child. It increases it, and it makes it, uh, just strengthens it. So those are some things that I would recommend. I know we've had water balloon fights. um there's there's a lot of, in our area, there are a lot of people doing Pokemon Go. Do you remember that from like 5 years ago? That's been flaring up again. So things like that. Yeah. Going for hikes. We've done a lot of that too. That's been really helpful. Any sort of movement thing, I think, getting back to that nature. If we dose movement throughout the day, and you wake up and you go for a walk or something like that, you take the dogs for a walk, and then you come back, and then at lunchtime, maybe you do something else. Maybe it's a walk, maybe it's just dance on the video game or something like that, something with the movement. I know my there's a game out now called Ring Fit, which is another movement video game. So you don't have to leave the house, you can still get that movement in. And so if you do that throughout the day, then you get to the end of the day and you've got a kid that's really kind of well regulated, and is and feels good, instead of having a kid that's been kind of stuck all day, and just that dysregulation has increased and increased and increased. So at the end of the day, it's going to be a lot easier for them. It'll be a lot easier for you, as a parent, to meet those needs.
And I think as you're spending that time together and having fun together, that connection is going to also reduce the behavior challenges because they will feel better inside and they will feel more connected to you. And I think that kind of balances things out well with the attachment dynamics and meeting their needs in that way, relationally, emotionally, kind of keeps them in a good place, keeps you connected together on the same team as opposed to trying to make sure they're doing something and you feel like you're against them or they're against you, kind of coming along the same side to we're in this together and we're doing this as a team, we're together. So I think there's anxiety for parents on having the kids home. They've got their own job requirements to do. They're trying to keep their child in class online, likely more than one person on the internet at the same time. So lots of distraction and lots of interruption and maybe getting bumped off the internet or, different all the IT technology there that's all converging at once. I mean, there's just so many things. There's that aspect of the anxiety that's really hard and stressful. Then there's also when your kid starts going back to school in person and are they going to be safe? Are we going to be exposed? As soon as we put kids in school, there's positive cases, and it might feel scary to have them exposed further. And it's almost like hard if they're home, hard if they're at school. And then for some, it's a combination of both. So you've got some school days, they're in person, they do a hybrid version. So then they're home some days. So you're not only trying to adjust to one schedule, you've got different kinds of schedules that are rotating around. So there's a lot of transition, a lot of change, a lot of adjustment. How do you encourage these parents
Wow, that's
and
a great
kiddos that are
question.
trying to adjust with them? There's
Yeah.
just a lot of heightened stress, or how do we help settle into what's not normal, but it is our new normal?
Right. Right. I think that's a great question. I don't know that I have a definitive answer for that. I think there's a lot in that. I guess what I would go back to would be, from a parent standpoint, self-care, and putting on your mask first. so that you can be supportive of your child and be there to meet those needs that they have. Um, and if I'm doing that, then their discomfort or anxiety will lessen because my anxiety's down, right? Yeah. What are your thoughts, Julie?
Well, it's interesting because we often end up talking about self care, and nobody really initially likes the idea of, because it seems, I've said the analogy before of if you're drowning in a boat and you hand someone a spoon and you kind of pour out the water that's coming into the boat with this little spoon, like how in the world is that ever going to help? And yet, by the time I have worked with folks and they've changed their relationship with themselves, that they care more about how they feel, that they realize if we treat ourselves well, we feel better. Like if we are nurturing and kind and gentle with ourselves, we feel like, oh, that feels kind of good. I want to keep doing that. I feel better. I feel happier. I feel more content, more peace. I'm able to, like, that widens my window of tolerance. I'm able to withstand more of the stress, and I can do more of it then, and I can continue that self care. And oftentimes, when people come back and tell me about how they're doing so much better, and they ask, or, I'll ask them, like, what do you think was a key part of that? How has it been better? What's changed? And inevitably, they say they've increased their self care. They really started
Mhm.
taking better care of themselves because the foundational things of getting enough sleep and eating the right nutrients, staying hydrated, staying connected to friends, even if it's through FaceTime or Zoom or a walk at the park, or even just texting to reach somebody so that you're not just going through um, your day on your own, but you're actually having relationships that matter, that you're able to connect to. Like all of that is life giving. And the more things that you do like that and that you realize are small things add up, they all contribute to really helping to feel better. So I definitely echo how important that is because you really can't continue the stress level when you're depleted and you're not getting restored anywhere.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah, I also think too, I was talking with my therapist kind of just about expectations of being an adult and just having it all together. I think that I could see a lot of people and just also extending that maybe to some situations that I've been into, like kind of denying self care, whether that's emotional or physical or mental, and just being like, oh, I should have it together by now. I should, adults are stronger than this, and to just like you said, kind of using a single spoon to just dig out the water, just being like, yeah, and plus I got a massage like 2 weeks ago, so I already just treated myself, or whatever it is, instead of like a daily check in or kind of like making sure those needs are met almost at every point. So I just thought that was an interesting kind of maybe connecting that to who to somebody who kind of I don't know sees things how I recently did.
hmm
You know.
hmm It sounds to me like talking a little bit about self-compassion, and accepting that accepting our imperfectness. That's a word. Um, but just being human, you know. Um, and we don't have all the answers to some of these things, and even though we wish we did, you know, we don't have all the answers, and
I think it makes so much sense to be able to accept and even celebrate our humanity. Like humans are pretty amazing, incredible people. Like, we can go through a lot, we can withstand a lot, and we also hurt and we bleed and we need rest and we have limits. And so there's just all these dynamic, amazing, wonderful things about each person's uniqueness and who they are. And then there's also that shared humanity of we struggle and we hurt and we need to be able to have compassion towards ourselves whenever it's hard and not keep pushing so hard. Listen to our bodies that are trying to help us and heal us and support us, that when it's time to slow down or it's time to take a break or we need to rest or pull back a little bit at times, we don't always have to work so hard and push so hard and try so hard. And if we get out of balance on the other side, I will say, like, because there is, maybe there's folks that have a hard time doing anything at all. And so it's like trying to mobilize that into small steps of what are the steps I could take to do something that maybe I put off or hadn't been focusing on. What can I kind of bring to the forefront of what I can kind of set some intention? The other question that was asked of me this week is, what do we do whenever we're all handling this differently? Whether it's, some people are really um, frustrated with masks and they don't think we need them, or they don't set as many boundaries. And, I've heard the phrase, you shouldn't live in fear. You've got to live your life. And then there's people that counter that with, it's not living in fear if you're walking in wisdom and using what we've been told by medical professionals. But I think there's differences on what medical professionals even believe. So we've got all kinds of different views when it comes to quarantining and the pandemic. And then we're going to pretty soon be headed towards this election where there's, again, all different sides of how do we help our nation? How do we have some leadership that can really make a difference? And what do we do with all those different views out there? And what do you do whenever those different views are even with your own family and friends?
That's a tough one, Joey.
Yep.
Right? That's a tough one.
Yep, it
I
is.
think
It's uncomfortable
it is.
and messy,
Mm,
for sure.
yeah. I wonder what I've seen, just like, whether that's the news or within family and those kinds of things, is I think that if we could just very intentionally listen to others and just try, and whether we agree with them or not from any political standpoint, or wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, or whatever it is, but just trying to understand and coming at it from a place of curiosity of, you know, let me see if I can get it from your shoes, so that, and whether I agree with it or not doesn't, I may not change my mind, and that's okay, but to be heard and to have your opinion kind of like valued, I think that's I wonder if that's where I think that's where I would like to see things go, instead of, well, this is the way it is, or, I'm just not listening to what that person says. Um, so
I think that's so true. People jump into an argument to defend and fight and say against each other's sides or viewpoints, or there's so much energy of emotion. They're so frustrated or irritable or angry or whatever, instead of just pausing to say, what would it be like to try to understand? What would it be like to see a different perspective?
and how could that change things?
I think it does. Interestingly, I think it does come back around to, so often, our sense of boundaries of, it's okay that I have my thoughts and feelings and perspectives and ideas and viewpoints, and someone else has theirs, and they might be different, and there might be different ways of doing things, and sometimes that's hard, if we hold on tight to how we're viewing something, that imagining something different can be challenging for people. But maybe not taking it personally if somebody sees something differently. There's a reason for their perspectives and their experiences. There's probably some context and some history to it, I would imagine.
Mm. There was So a therapist that actually I still see shared something with me about, having just kind of what you're talking about having that space between what I believe and what you believe. And if I even think about it and put my hand on my chest and then my other hand kind of is away from me, saying that there is space between us, between two people, where it's not lack of connection, but it's, for me, it's that visual reminder of, like, I have my feelings and I can have my thoughts and my opinions, and this person is should have be able to have their thoughts and their values and their opinions, and we can be in the same space and still have that, and that's healthy. Like, that is okay.
Absolutely. We use those same hand motions on our episodes
Oh, really?
for boundary work.
Okay.
If you go to our boundary episode, there's hand on your heart and hand extended, and the idea of differentiation, that, I'm a separate person, and that helps me have a strong foundation as a sense of self, of who I am. And then it gives me the ability to listen to somebody else, because I don't maybe worry or fear that I will get lost in the middle of that. I can hold on to a sense of who I am and also listen to who the other person is.
Yeah, I can also imagine that being a good parenting technique, because I remember as a kid having such varied feelings and kind of like that kind of pendulum back and forth of big highs and low lows. So being able to do that with your kids in a stressful situation, like COVID-19 quarantine is. COVID-19 quarantine. I don't know if I said that right. But anyway, just being able to mentally separate. I use that boundary thing all the time just to kind of separate myself from, sometimes like I'm so into the emotions of the whole room, whatever it is, that I'm lost in it. So to be able to remind myself, oh yeah, I'm my own person, I'm able to clear my head a little bit.
Sure.
Okay, so yeah, as we near the end of the episode, we finish with kind of either a gratitude or an affirmation. So I will go ahead and start. Nope. I sometimes I have these, and sometimes I'm like, I don't know how to word that. So
Go ahead.
maybe I'll just say what I'm thinking, and you guys can help me think of an affirmation. But
Oh, cool.
I'm
Yeah.
really glad that, and I feel really accomplished that I did bike to Yellow Springs and back. It's like 150 miles, so
That's amazing.
I'm just trying to word, like, I have been increasing my own stamina with my bike and stuff like that. So maybe it's being diligent. Maybe it's something about me being diligent, but I'm not sure. I'd have to kind of look into that. Maybe just like, I don't know. There's an affirmation somewhere. But I am grateful
am
that I did the
strong.
trip. Yeah.
I endure.
Endure, yes. I like that.
I'm up for adventure.
Yeah, definitely.
I can take on a challenge.
I'll go next if you want me to. I guess I'd like to do gratitude, and I would say I'm grateful for this experience. I want to thank you guys. This is just, Julie, it's always a delight to get to spend time with you. And Samuel, it's great to meet you. I've heard a lot about you just kind of all through the years. Definitely all good things. So just really grateful to be able to spend time with you guys.
So connecting that into another gratitude that was really awesome this week, actually, I was listening to the Calm app, which I'm very faithful to. I really love to use that every day. But there was one of the meditations that they had us do was like imagining love that we're able to receive in, and then what it's like to give that love out, and who are your support people. And he said include people like your mentors, your friends, your teachers, authors, people who have like just been influential in your life. So I started imagining all these things, and the picture that came to mind for me was these little hearts, almost like confetti in the air, that were just kind of like pouring down on me, like the different people that have been influential to me and have mattered to me. And he talked about the idea of like not being alone, that you have people with you. You are never alone. You have these people in your heart. And I just thought of all that kind of showering down like confetti or like this magical rainbow hearts that were just tiny and in the air and just kind of pouring over me. And it was really beautiful to have that moment of connection of just the people that, Betsy, we don't get to see each other all the time. And, when our paths cross and we're able to send a message or when I see your name or something, I just think my heart is warmed. I'm just so grateful. So, and remembering that we have that with people, even in the midst of quarantine and hard times, it's like there are people that our lives connect with, and remembering that we're not alone and that we do all matter. Relationships matter, people matter, listening to hearts matters. Like, that's good stuff. So
Cool. Well, thanks, Betsy, for joining us. So great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
For our listeners, we will see you again in 2 weeks. Thanks so much for joining us. I can't wait to talk with you then.